Hello, my name's Michael Coker. I'm doing my final capstone project for Kaiser University on juvenile recidivism. It's an issue that we deal with every day at the sheriff's office. We're constantly arresting kids. They're in and out of our cars. We see the same kid this week that we'll see next week doing the exact same thing because there's not programs that we need that have been tried in many different states because a lot of it has to do with family, friends, and that type of stuff. I've worked 5 years at Volusia County Sheriff's Office. I've worked on the patrol level, I've worked in the juvenile courts, and back on patrol level, and seeing what goes on in the juvenile courtroom, you realize that nothing really is going to change. There's no programs that the state has funds for, that no laws that the courts can enforce or anything to that nature when it regards to juveniles. Juvenile recidivism, it's a major issue in the United States. Juveniles come back to society without the proper rehabilitation. A lot of times their programs will end one day and they'll be back in court the next day for whatever it is. If they're a thief, they tend to be a thief. If they're a burglar, they tend to burglarize. Recidivism is a term that's used for ex-convicts to return to their life of crime. Preventing juvenile delinquency early is better than trying to fix the problem later. Studies have shown that the third grade literacy level is what is used to predict the number of beds that they're going to need in 20 years in prisons. Because of these type of studies, they're able to determine this type of stuff because it's an indicator as to how their social life and their peers and their education levels are going to shape our criminals in the future. The Lyman High School for Boys in Westboro, Massachusetts began in 1846. It was created to reform young boys in criminal acts, involved in criminal acts. The first juvenile justice system was established in 1899 in Illinois. Henry Galt, it was a 1967 U.S. Supreme Court case. Basically, it was a 15-year-old boy named Gerald Galt. He was in Arizona. He made a threatening prank phone call to one of his neighbors. Galt was previously on parole for theft, and the judge was so fed up with him that he sentenced him to Arizona State Prison Program until he was 21 years old. There was no appeal. The Parents and Civil Liberties Union went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court found that there was violations of due process. Galt wasn't provided an attorney. He was asked questions that most people wouldn't be asked, and the case basically forced fair sentences as it regards to juveniles. Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention Act. The Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention Act was passed in 1974. It classified, there was two types of crimes. Crimes that adults do not commit, such as truancy, runaways, possession of tobacco or alcohol. And all these crimes would carry probation. You'd go to court, you'd have sanctions. They'd be ordered probation, no detention time would be enforced. The only exception was weapons possession charges, and they would fall under the delinquency offenses. And these are like thefts, assaults, burglaries, murder, anything to that sense that an adult that were to do the same thing, they would go to prison for, or jail for, or have additional fines, penalties, or anything such as that. Programs. There are various programs were designed to discourage delinquencies and recidivism. Two of the major programs are the Scared Straight programs. This is where kids were sent to jails in prisons to see how adult criminals live their life, and it was basically used to deter them from being criminals because they see how criminals live if they continue that life. Another program was the Juvenile Boot Camp program. This lasted for about 30 years until studies showed that kids were being killed due to excessive punishment. They were being beat, they were dying of heat strokes, all sorts of stuff like that. Evidence-based treatment programs, functional family therapy, multi-systematic therapy, MST, is designed for each individual, family, schools, social factors, all that was part of what was looked at in the multi-systematic therapy program. And the multi-dimensional treatment foster care program, it's a foster care program used as treatment. All three of these were very successful over the years. Control approach programs. First part of a control and approach program is to instill discipline in the youth. Second is a behavioral change. That's what the goal is to make sure that these kids don't have issues. Positive skill building, teach kids different skills that they're able to master and learn, and include some type of counseling, whether it's family counseling, group counseling, or just some mentoring that they might need. Research, trials, and case studies have proved MST is the most effective and efficient type of control approach program. And like I said previously, MST's goal is to break the bonds of peers and encourage family and mentoring guidance. This is where we use social factors, family, that sort of stuff. MST's goal is standard in assessing juvenile recovery. Restorative justice program objective. Restore justice to a victim and community. Juveniles are made to take responsibility for their actions. Using the restorative justice program objective, ultimately we want them to know that what they did was bad and they need to take responsibility for it, just like an adult would. If they were to steal something and spend somebody's money, they need to be ordered to pay restitution. Made more accountable to those involved, like I stated. SNAP programs, Stop Now, Act Later, for boys 6 to 11, was another program that they have used over the years. It's group therapy to identify bad behaviors, what it starts with. Goes on to bringing boys and their parents together in therapy sessions. Programs are held in the delinquent school rather than at home. This way they can be around their peers and in their social environment that they're in 8, 12 hours a day. It addresses anger management and social skills. Perry Preschool Project. This is one of our more prevalent programs that we've used. It's targets high-risk areas, communities that are high crime and stuff like that, and it tries to catch the kids prior to them becoming criminals. It's a long-term early childhood program where delinquent risk factors are present. It's held in the community. It's 8 hours a day of, or 8 hours a week rather, of counseling. It provides education, 90-minute home visits weekly over a 2-year program, and basically this is much like a DARE program or something to that effect that targets kids that are at risk for being criminals, and they try to prevent it at an early age, get to them sooner rather than later, to where there is some fixing them before it's too late. 3 main factors of success are family, positive family encouragement, support, love, care, and guidance. It's one of the major things that contributes to not having kids breaking the law. Peers, whoever the child chooses to hang out with or whoever they're forced to hang out with, plays a major issue into whether or not they're going to be a criminal. If they hang out with the wrong crowd, chances are they're going to do bad things. And social life, young offenders learn behavior due to the society they grow up in. If they grow up in a high crime area and they're around gangsters that murder people and stuff like that, chances are they're going to grow up to be a gangster and murderer. Okay, guys, any questions that you would like to ask regarding juvenile recidivism and how it works maybe in our area, or any programs that we use? John?
Do we have any of these programs in Volusia County?
Volusia County, our programs are horrible, to say it kindly. Like I said, I worked in the courthouse for a couple years, and we would constantly see the same kids. I knew exactly who they were on a first name basis, as well as a judge. They would be sentenced to programs if they were nonviolent misdemeanors, or even if they were felonies sometime. They wouldn't qualify to go to any kind of treatment programs. Granted, we'd have ones every now and then that would do 3, 4, 5 carjackings or assaults or something like that, and they may get sentenced to a program for 6 months to a year. Most of the time they'd end up on probation, and they constantly violate probation. They'd miss their curfews, they'd use drugs. It was just a big game to them. So no, our programs don't work well in Volusia County. They're horrible. Anybody else?
What do you think is the most important factor in change? The family, friends, or what was there's
The
family,
social
friend,
class?
and the social, yes.
I think
Or is it a whole component is needed to make change?
I think the family's the biggest one. Parents that discipline their children at a young age, they tend to get it. They're not like these hellions that are around now. And so I mean, social class obviously falls into it, but it's got to do a lot with your family. If you have the right family and the right guidance at home, you're going to know you can't hang out with bad peers, or you don't belong in certain areas. Anybody else?
Have you seen any or been in any successful environments with the juvenile kids?
Not typically. Like I said, most of our kids, they'll reoffend constantly. They'll have multiple charges. We see them in and out all the time. There's one kid in particular that stuck out. He was kind of just a victim of growing up in the wrong area, and he was mentored by one of the judges, and he actually turned out to be a pretty good kid. He would come into the courtroom and sit and watch and try to reach out to some of the other kids, but it wasn't too successful. He basically just did what he could. Anyone else? Nothing? Like I said, juveniles, it's going to continue to be an issue because they're growing up, times are getting different. We have technology, we have cars, we have everything else nowadays that increase the amount of crime, the violent television that they watch, the schools that they grow up in. If anyone's paid attention to the news lately, we've seen shootings, this, that, everything else, and the world we live in today is just a violent world. We're always going to have crime, but with proper things such as the Scared Straight program, which in my opinion, was one of the best programs they had, to kind of detour these kids and say, hey, if you're going to be a criminal, you're going to look like this guy that lives in a cage, just like an animal. In my opinion, that was the best program we have, and we need more like that. All right, thank you all for attending, and have a good day.